which is ISO 16890. So with this standard, all other standards will be superseded. They will be history, right? So basically, the present rating, which is G1 to F9, the existing standard as per EN 779, will be replaced by particulate matter fractions. So we all know what is PM, because now there is a lot of talk on PM level pollution, right? So particulate matter is basically finely suspended gaseous as well as liquid particles which remain in the air for an indefinite period of time, right? So this ISO classification, ISO 16890, it has classified, it is looking to classify filters as per ISO course, as per ISO PM10, PM2.5 and PM1. So these are the four subsets, four categories in which the filters will be classified. Again, they are looking to replace the conventional system, because we all know, we used to say G4 filter, F7 filter, F9, etc. So all that will be replaced with this nomenclature as per ISO. So again, the question comes that why do we need a new standard, right? So basically we need it because nowadays everybody is talking about PM level pollutions, right? So that is one reason. And secondly, if you see the exact definition of PM, of particulate matter, is pretty complex, right? So what these organizations such as US EPA or ISO, what they've done is basically simplified it as per PM10, PM2.5 and PM1. So PM10 essentially says that particles which pass through, a size selective inlet of 10 microns, 10 microns aerodynamic diameter and having 50% efficiency. So that would be classified as PM10. Again, subsequently for PM2.5, the efficiency cutoff is again 50% and 2.5 microns diameter. And PM1 is smaller. Like again, that would be 50% efficiency is the cutoff, and 1 microns is the basically the classification. So that is how these filters are classified. Again, why we need it is because as per our usual testing, let's say as per ASHRAE or as per EN 779, it was simulating the conditions, right? Filters were being tested in a test rig, in a lab, etc. So ISO, it actually measures the reality, because this PM level pollution is the reality, which is what we are facing, especially in Gurgaon, especially in NCR. So this is the actual situation. So it is always best that if we test filters as per real life conditions, real life simulations. So that is how, that is why it makes sense, right? And because this again ASHRAE method of testing uses ASHRAE dust, which is fine dust then mixed with carbon lint, etc. So this ISO testing is towards the much more finer, much more harmful dust, right? So to make a case out of it, I'll tell you, like in a human lung. Now this is a section of the human lung, so you can see that how these different particles are accumulating inside the human body. So essentially, our nose is the first level of filter, right? All your coarse filtration, which is higher than 10 microns, would be likely to be accumulated inside your nose, right? So that is your first filter. Subsequently, if you see, as the micron level goes finer, as it goes, the microns become smaller, they get ingested in your nose, in your pharynx, in your trachea, and the very small microns, very small particulate matter, which is to the tune of 1 microns and smaller, that would reach your finer blood vessels inside your lungs. So that is how it is deposited inside the human body. So you can see how acute, how serious is this problem faced by PM level pollution, right? Subsequently, so PM1 again. Now everybody talks of PM2.5, PM10, PM1. Sorry, PM10. But basically, PM1 is the most dangerous. It is the most harmful, because once accumulated inside your finer blood vessels, right, it can harm your central nervous system, and it's a cause for increased cardiovascular diseases, etc. Right? So fine particles from zero point 0.5 to 0.25 microns have an increased risk on the human health aspect, right? So that is why PM1 is considered to be the most dangerous. again, why we need to keep an eye on it? Because if you see in a conventional air, right, in a normal standard air, the highest mass of the particles is from 100 microns to 2.5 microns. That goes without saying. But um, the numbers are contributed by your PM1 microns, because they are subsequent. They are the most smallest in size, right? And again, they literally have no mass, right? So that is why, because of this, they are able to stay in the air for a much longer duration of time, right? They can stay in air indefinitely, which is why it poses poses an additional risk, additional hazard, basically, so to speak. Uh, because of their harmfulness, because of their frequency and permanence is basically how long they stay in the airstream. That is why this 1 micron particulate matter needs the highest attention, right? So now I'll talk of how the filters are tested and classified as per ISO. So earlier, as we were all dealing with EN 779, they basically classify filters considering particle sizes of zero point 0.4 microns. Now, the difference in ISO is that the minimum is 0.3, right? So they are basically capturing a wider spectrum of particulate matter, because again, they are going down to 0.3 microns. So the range covered under ISO is from 10 microns to 0.3 microns, right? So basically you have 10, 2.5, 1 and zero point 0.3. Whereas in EN 779, it was classified from zero point 0.4 microns. So that is one difference. Subsequently, the efficiency, how the filter is, how the filter efficiency is checked is different. So filter efficiency is measured from zero point 0.3 to 10 microns of the clean filter, right? Now by clean filter, we mean that it is not charged, right? Because there is a electrostatic charge which is placed on the filter, static electricity, you all know, which gives an additional efficiency advantage, right? So first, the filter efficiency is measured on the clean filter, not conditioned filter. Then basically it is conditioned in an isopropanyl vapor, right? Which is basically to eliminate the particulate filtration based on electrostatic forces, right? Now again, the conditioned filter, the efficiency is again measured. So actual efficiency as per ISO is the average of the conditioned and the unconditioned filter, right? And what is important is that the filter needs to show a minimum 50% efficiency for the conditioned and unconditioned filter. That is how it is classified, right? So again, the values allotted are for, so ISO course, ISO EPM 10, EM 2, PM 2.5 and PM 1. So you can see the size classification, that greater than 10 microns, 10 2.3, 2.5 2.3 and 1 2.3. So that is how it is classified. And also the filter efficiency is rounded off in 5% increments, and 50% efficiency is the cutoff. So just to give an example, supposing a filter is tested and these are the efficiencies which it gives. So you can see that for PM10, the efficiency is 89%. For PM2.5, it is 63%, and PM1, it is 49%. So what it means is that, as we said, that for a filter to be classified, it has to have that 50% efficiency benchmark, right? So PM1, it will not follow, but it will fall under EPM10 or PM2.5. Again, since PM2.5 is more critical, so this filter is classified as a PM2.5 level filter, right? And the efficiency is again rounded off. So it's not 63%, it is rounded off as a 60%. So that is how these filters are classified under ISO. Yeah. So this was the timeline basically for filter classification. So EN 779, that has been around with us since 2002. That was when the first amendment was issued. Subsequently, 2012, there was another amendment, right? So from 2017 to 2018, mid 2018, a window was given for all the filter manufacturers, so that probably they can get their filter rigs, you know, um, designed as per this ISO testing norms, because this again involves investment on the filter manufacturer, that all the filter testing apparatus should be as per ISO. So this window was given basically, so that people can adjust can acclimatize to this new standard called ISO, right? And it was decided that EN 779 would be subsequently withdrawn and people would shift to ISO 16890. Now, people in pharma industry would very well know this standard because a lot of pharma majors, lot of pharma companies are asking for filters as per ISO 16890, right? Now, this is a summary of EN 779 EN 779 versus ISO 16890. So you can see that as I was saying, the filter testing, basically the size, micron sizes was from zero point 0.4 microns under EN and it is 0.3 microns in ISO. So the aerosol used is only DEHS aerosol for particle injection, whereas in the case of ISO, it is potassium chloride as well as DEHS, right? So again, this is a more transparent and more closer to reality. This is the actual testing, so to speak, right? Filter discharging is that it is in EN 779, it is only on the media, whereas in ISO, it is on the full filter, right? With the treatment. IPA is isopropanol vapor, right? So again, it is a more realistic simulation of the filter performance. Important aspect is the test dust. So under EN 779, we were using ASHRAE dust, which is much more coarse, right? It is a mix of sand and carbon lint, etc. Now, ISO is a much more finer dust, right? And again, filter classification as per EN 779 is G1, G2, G3, G4, M5, M6, and then fine filters, which is F7, F9, etc. Whereas in ISO, it is much more simpler. You only have 4 categories, which is ISO coarse, ISO 10, 2.5, and PM1, right? So this actually relates to the real level world pollution because globally we all are facing this PM10, PM2.5, PM1 related issues, right? So a bit about EN 779, as I was saying that this is how the test, how the standard is designed. So you have coarse, medium and fine filters, filters being classified from G1 till F9 grade, right? Now for HEPA filters, which is high efficiency particulate air, HEPA filters, there's a standard called EN 1822. So that is strictly for HEPA and ULPA filters. ULPA filters are ultra low particulate air, very high efficiency. So that is under EN, there's a separate standard for it. And EN 779 is primarily for your coarse, fine, coarse, medium and fine filters, right? And point to note is that they talk of average efficiency. So I would like to highlight that when we say a pre-filter having efficiency 90% down to 1 microns, that is wrong. We have to classify it as per average efficiency. You know, that is the way forward. Subsequently, we all know ASHRAE, ASHRAE 52.2. So ASHRAE is another, this is a US standard. Again, we all know this because it classifies filters from MERV 1 till MERV 16. So your standard G4 filter would be a MERV 8 filter under ASHRAE 52.2. Again, this is also rating filters from a minimum size of 0.4 microns till 10 microns. So you have MERV 8, MERV 13, etc., which is written in ISHRAE guidelines also. So a MERV 13 would be equivalent to a F7 filter, right? So that is how these filters are classified as per ASHRAE ratings. So again, just a bit about our company. So how we are looking on ISO. So see, you have to understand that with filtration efficiency, there would be a certain energy aspect involved, right? So the more efficient the filter is, you know, the more arrestance capacity of a filter, it would come with a sacrifice on energy efficiency, because if you increase the filtration efficiency, it would certainly involve a certain pressure drop, right? So in AF, in our company, so that is our what we believe as an organization, that we don't we are not sacrificing energy efficiency for filtration efficiency. We are looking on both sides of the coin. So we are looking at PM1 efficiency also, and on the other end, we are looking at the total cost of ownership, which is very important for green buildings and for everybody in general, right? We all want to minimize our carbon footprint, because you see, with every additional pressure drop, there is approximately $1 additional incurred in an energy expenditure. So that is why we have to look at both sides of the coin. again, if we talk of ISO filters, we have these kind of filters to cater to that requirement. So for PM10, we have this mega pleat filter. For pores, we have AMAIR, and for PM2.5 and PM1, we have Vericel. If you see this kind of filter, it's a V-bank construction. So it is good for very high dust holding capacity. It has a dual media, like when the air enters the media, it is coarse and then it subsequently becomes fine. So all this are ISO certified filters, which we can offer you, right? So again, this is a testing rig as per ISO, which is at our Malaysia factory for AA, right? And I'll just show you a video, which is of our. So a point being is that all filters, like normally all filters, they are especially HEPA filters, right? So they are tested with the aerosol. You have an aerosol which is injected upstream, and you measure the downstream concentration to check whether the filter is performing as per the efficiency rated for it, right? So to cater to that, we have this auto scanner installed, which is, as you can see in this video, it's a completely computerized setup. So you have a probe which will scan the filter surface and measure the downstream concentration, and it would classify the filter. So it would validate the HEPA filter or the ULPA filter, right? So it is a big investment on our company's part, and we are the only ones who are having it in India, right? So that was on filtration standards. Now I'll take you through basically what all is there in filters and what we have for COVID specifically, right? Yeah. So again, if I talk of like our company has a tagline which is bringing clean air to life. So essentially, this means that as an organization, we are focused on providing solutions, on providing products which a improve the indoor air quality, b protect certain critical processes like pharma, etc., like FMCG companies, clean rooms, wherein your process is very important, right? So, and thirdly, we are looking to improve the human condition as a whole, right? So, just a brief about the organization. As I said, we are almost 100 years old now. And this company was founded in 1921 by a person named as Mr. William Reed, right? So Mr. William Reed was looking for a paint shop solution. Basically, he had a paint shop, and he could see that certain fine matter, certain particulate matter would infiltrate the paint shop and come in contact with the cars, etc., with the paint, and cause rejection basically. So that is how he started. So the first filter was nothing more than a steel a wool membrane fixed across a window to prevent any foreign particle ingress. So that is how it started. And over the next 5 to 6 years, he put together 6 to 7 companies and founded AA. So basically, we have pioneered the air filtration industry as on date, and globally we do more than $1 billion of sales. So we have 22 manufacturing locations across the globe, right? And we have, since we are part of Daikin, we have two R&D centers, 6 R&D centers to be exact. So one of them is in Osaka, Japan. The other main one is in Jeffersonville, Indiana. That is the second one. And we have like 7,000 employees across the globe and 22 manufacturing locations. Also, just a brief slide. So we are part of Daikin since 2006. Now, Daikin, of course, needs no introduction. It is like more than $23 billion in sales and more than 70,000 employees, approximately 300 subsidiary companies, right? So our company forms under it is under the air filtration umbrella of Daikin, right? And along with our company, we have two other companies called Nippon Moki, which is a clean room equipment manufacturer based out of Japan, right? And then this Din Air company is a company which focuses on OEM level filters, right? So that is the second part. In India, we have 2 plants. So we have a plant in Greater Noida, with which we are catering to the upcountry customers of Jammu, Baddi, Solan, etc. And then we have a main plant, our mother plant in Bangalore, right? That is about us. So when I talk of filters in general, So basically, air filters are primarily, we are looking for interior air, right? So in view of the COVID threat, in view of the virus pathogens which are now suddenly brought into the limelight, so we have air filtration is primarily for the IAQ aspect, improving the indoor air quality and providing an environment which is free from viruses, pathogens, etc. So that is one aspect. Secondly, if you see process air, now process air, I mean critical processes, which is pharma and other clean room processes. So that is a second application for air filtration business. Thirdly, if you see environmental air, so all your pollution which is generated, uh, STP plants, refineries, etc. So that comes under the environmental air part of the business. So again, you have filtration solutions which help you in mitigating the environmental risk. So primarily, this is what is being catered by air filters. Now, if I talk of interior air, so all your filters, starting from the very basic G1 filter or G4 filter, which is your panel filters, like it is non-woven synthetic media available in 25 or 50 depths, right? So that comes under this interior air segment. So the that is there, and then you have pocket filters, which is your bag filters, right? So bag filters, the advantage is that they have a higher dust holding capacity. They can give you a lower pressure drop. So that is the advantage with bag filters. If you see, a lot of people are specifying bag filters now in their projects. Excuse me. So all that comes under the interior air part of it, right? And also you have chemical filters, because nowadays you have a lot of VOCs and you have a lot of gases which needs to be addressed, right? If I take the example of Gurgaon location, so you have vehicular pollution, you have other sources of emissions, uh, VOCs which are generated. So you want to capture that also, and that can also be captured using filters. So we have chemical filters for it, right? So again, if I talk of interior air, the application is vast. You have offices, you have malls, you have shopping complexes, you have airports, right? You have libraries, museums, etc. So all that can be catered to by filtration solutions under the interior air umbrella, right? So that is one. Again, if I talk of process air, now with process air, the requirement is far more critical. Now, if you all must have heard that class 10,000 areas, class 100 areas, class 1 lakh areas. So what they mean is basically that class 1 lakh is basically the maximum permissible concentration, right? So when I say 1 lakh, I mean that the total number of particles should not exceed 1 lakh per cubic feet of zero point 0.5 micron size, right? That is how it is classified, and that is how a clean room is classified. Now, to achieve that kind of cleanliness level, you have to have definitely the best filtration solutions which are there in the market. With that, I come to HEPA and ULPA filters, which are the highest efficiency filters available in the market today, right? And along with that, in pharma, another big requirement is the air changes, ACPH. So if you see, for class 1 lakh area or class 10,000 areas, they require 30 air changes, they require 40 air changes. So you can see what is the level of air change which is required to meet such conditions. And I tell you, that is a mandatory requirement, because these pharma companies, they are manufacturing tablets, they are manufacturing powders, right? API, which is active pharmaceutical ingredient. So with such things which are being manufactured, a certain mishap, a certain infiltration or cross contamination could lead to huge losses, huge losses for these pharma majors. And because ultimately all of them are going for US FDA norms, US FDA certification. So for them, this cleanliness class is of paramount importance, which is why we have HEPA and we have ULPA filters to cater to such kind of requirements. Of course, having said that, they also use your standard filters, which is like semi-HEPA, coarse and fine filters. And you also have chemical filters, because to capture your gases and other VOCs, other fugitive gases, you need to have chemical filters in place. So that is for process air. Now, when I talk of environmental air, so with environmental air, certain processes such as an STP plant, sewage treatment plant, wastewater treatment, right? Or a swimming pool, or a kitchen application where you have odors. Now you don't want those odors or noxious fumes to release into the atmosphere. So for that also you have filters in place. You have chemical filters which are used to arrest such kind of gases. Now in chemical filters again you have activated carbon type or activated alumina, right? All that is there. So that comes under the environmental air aspect, right? Again, to address corrosion. Now, certain companies such as TCS, Wipro, Infosys, Google, they all have data centers, and there is a large concentration of data centers in areas such as Malad in Mumbai and Noida, where you have landfill areas. So you have a lot of corrosive gases in the atmosphere, which needs to be filtered, right? So that can be addressed. That problem can be mitigated through your chemical filters, right? So that is another aspect which can with which we can provide you a solution, right? So all that is environmental air. Similarly, I come to refineries, IOCL, HMEL, Batenda, etc. All refineries also you have this problem of corrosion. So for that also they require chemical filtration, airports, etc. So the application is pretty vast, and chemical filters is catching up like anything. I am seeing a lot of inquiries for chemical filters nowadays. Yeah. So if I talk of product portfolio, uh, basically you can see the size of the contaminants, right? So when I talk of air filters in general, you have the higher towards the higher end of the spectrum, which is 100 microns, right? So just to give you an idea, 100 microns is the aerodynamics diameter of a human hair. So you can just very well imagine that if 100 microns is the size of your human hair, what is the size of PM10, PM2.5 or PM1, the contaminants that we are discussing, right? So you can see we have classified certain household dusts and other common microorganisms, and you can see how it is classified. And when I come to bacteria, when I come to viruses, of course they are much more smaller in nature. For example, the COVID virus is 0.01 microns, which is absolutely the a minuscule size, right? So our particulate filters are basically to capture from 100 microns till zero point 0.1 or 0.01 microns. Um, so we have your standard filters, which is G1, G2, G3, G4, which is still 10 microns. Then you have medium filters, which is like F5, F6, M7. Then you have fine filters and semi-FR filters, right? All that filters comes under particulate filtration. Uh, Similarly, the G1 to F5 classification, as we were discussing in my previous slides, that is as per EN 779 nomenclature, right? If you talk of ASHRAE, they speak of MERV ratings, which is minimum efficiency reporting value. That is the full form of MERV. So a MERV a filtration is basically from MERV 1 to MERV 16, right? That is how it is classified. Now under EN, when you talk of HEPA filters, it goes to EN 1822 standard. So that is the standard which we are using for HEPA filters, right? And in MERV, basically a MERV 16 would be equivalent to a H13 or a H14 HEPA filter. That is how it is classified, right? And subsequently, ISO is a new standard which only talks of PM10, PM2.5, PM1, right? So that is a broad spectrum. That is how these filters are classified, basically. So an important point is that here all filters are rated as per MPPS. Now MPPS is a very important term. By MPPS I mean a most penetrating particle size, right? So a common question is that if a HEPA filter is rated for a 99.97% efficiency down to zero point 0.3 microns, how would it be effective in capturing a virus or a bacteria or a pathogen which is much more smaller in size? So having said that, you have to realize that the filter is rated as per MPPS, right? So zero point 0.3 microns is the size at which is found to be the most penetrating size in a HEPA filter, right? And at that particular size, it is giving an efficiency of 99.97%. But what it means is that for certain microns which are lower than zero point 0.3 microns, right? It could be 0.2, 0.1, or higher than 0.3, 0.4, the efficiency of the filter would improve, right? So thereby, that is why it is said that I am not saying it. In fact, ASHRAE and ISHRAE guidelines have also specified that you need to improve your central air conditioning filtration system to the maximum possible. They are recommending MERV 13 filters for HUs as a bare requirement. So MERV 13 is your F7 or F8 grade, right? And if you provide HEPA or ULPA filters, so that is an additional advantage, right? That is how you'll be able to arrest or capture a virus. That is how it is designed. So, and to keep in mind, you have various technologies now. Since we deal in filters, we are providing you a solution with HEPA and ULPA filters, with which the problem comes of pressure drop. No doubt, with these filters, there is a static requirement because they have a pressure drop of at least 25 mm initial, which can go up till 50 mm as a final pressure drop. So that disadvantage is there. But having said that, it will help you in capturing all your various toxins, various pathogens, right? Now, you have different solutions. You have PCO technologies, you have ionization, etc. Now, of course, they come with the advantage that there is no level of modification required in the system. You can simply install it. But what they don't tell you is that basically with these kind of solutions, there is always a byproduct. They work on ionization, right? So they are charging your ions. When they are creating an electrostatic field, basically they are creating ions as a byproduct, right? So those ions or other byproducts that could be harmful because they will come inside the air stream. You have ozone, which is generated as a byproduct, right? So this ozone is known to be in increasing concentration. It can cause your skin irritation, your eye irritation. It can cause throat irritation. So that is a byproduct which is generated, right? So all that comes under your different kinds of solutions. Again, if I talk of gas-based filtration, now if you see gas contaminants are much more smaller in size, right? So the microns are much more smaller. So no level of particulate filtration would be able to capture a gas contaminant because for a gas-based level of filter, the process which is involved is entirely different. You have adsorption, right? Uh, Adsorption is basically you are providing an extended surface. You are providing a what do you call? Just a second. Yeah, I think there is some slide issue. Yeah. So you are providing an extended surface basically for which the gaseous molecules can come and adsorb, right? So that is how a gas-based filter works. Now again, these are the size of the contaminants which we were discussing, and these are the filter types, right? You have coarse, you have medium, and you have HEPA filters. So you can see that HEPA filters are towards the smaller particle sizes. Again, these are the different grades of filters which are there. So you have coarse filters, medium, fine, and HEPA and ULPA filters. A different range of filters to take care of the problems, the particulate matter. And as I said, your HEPA and ULPA filters are there to cater to the most smallest size of contaminants, right? And if you see at the bottom of your screen, those are your chemical filters to address the chemical contaminants. So this is a slide on the gaseous contaminants, right? So you have odors. What is all which is generated through your restaurants, through kitchen exhaust, right? Probably a swimming pool. So all that is your odors, bad odors, which you want to filter. Then you have certain corrosive gases, right? Like for data center applications, you have SOx, NOx, ammonia, which are corrosive gases. So they are found in petrochemical plants and refineries, right? And thirdly is your vehicular pollution, your aviation fuel, your jet fumes, diesel fumes. That is under the third array of contaminants. So what I mean to say is that all that can be filtered out using chemical filters. So when you are designing a chemical filter, right? So essentially you have to have a pre-filter or a first level of filter which is installed upstream, right? So primarily purpose of that is that this gaseous filters, they work on adsorption, right? So when you are providing an extended surface for the gas molecules to adsorb on, you don't want any particulate matter to choke the surface, which is why you have to have a up filter, a pre-filter installed upfront, so that your extended surface is free from any particulate pollution and you can absorb the different gases. Secondly, if you see the fine filter, that is there to prevent any carbon carry forward, any carbon ingress inside the air stream, right? Uh, Again, different products are there. So we have, you have a deep bed scrubber. So if you see this solution, it looks like an HU, a double skin construction with a working fan, with a standby fan, right? And various chemical filters. So this solution is wherein you have very high concentration of pollutants, of corrosive gases. So you provide a DBS unit. A side access housing is something similar for a smaller concentration of gases. And if you see this recirculation unit, these kind of units are primarily for data center applications, wherein you want to protect your environment from corrosive gases, right? So that is the solutions available. Of course, then having said that, for chemical filters, you have media, chemical media, which is your fine granules, activated carbon granules, which are there, right? So to address the various gases. So depending upon the nature of the gas, it could be acidic in nature, it could be basic in nature. Accordingly, you select your chemical media, right? And again, a passive tool for checking the corrosion is reactivity measuring coupons, right? So this is primarily for a data center application. Like let's say some company is coming up with a data center in Noida, and you want to gauge that how much is the level of corrosion there. So you can install these coupons there, right? These are silver and copper coupons, and basically they work as per standard called ISA 71.04, which measures the extent of corrosion in there in the environment, right? So they are classified as G1, G2, G3, and GX. So GX is the most severe form of corrosion, right? So that is why these coupons, post 30 days, they give you a report that your data center is falling under which category. Accordingly, you can decide what kind of chemical filter you are looking to install, right? Um, Again, to address the COVID related issues, IAQ, people have come out with certain solutions. We have also this unit, which we call a standalone unit. You can see this unit, which is a small, very compact in size, and it has wheels at the bottom. It's highly portable. You can put it wherever you want it, right? And primarily, we have designed this unit for in view of the increased requirements of isolation rooms in hospitals, right? Because of COVID. So people who are designing a makeshift isolation room, right? For that, you can use this kind of unit, which has a multitude of filters. It has an EC fan, it has a pre-filter, it has a UV light, and it has a HEPA filter, right? To cater to the various viruses and pathogens available. Again, if you talk with the HEPA filter or a ULPA filter, you'll be able to capture the virus, right? As we discussed previously. But with the UV light is found to be very effective in killing the microorganisms, right? So why that is there is because UVC, you have different technologies. You have UVA, UVB, and UVC. UVC is around 250 Armstrongs. So this UV light, because once you capture the virus, you need to kill it. That is why this UV lamp is installed inside the unit to destroy the virus, because it works on the it works on altering the DNA of the germs, right? That is how it works. So that is one. Uh, Secondly, as we were discussing about clean room applications, so your filters are basically installed at the terminal level, right? Now in a comfort building, you have grills diffusers for supply air, but in a pharma facility, you have terminal HEPA housings, right? So you can see that this terminal HEPA housing is there to maintain the cleanliness level of the room of the facility, whether it's a class 10,000, class 1 lakh, etc. So that is why it is provided. You must have heard HEPA housings. So that is a housing with a inbuilt HEPA filter, right? And nowadays all manufacturers provide gel seal technology. So with that, the chances of leakage are minimum. Your HEPA filters are completely leak proof, and there is no chance, absolutely no risk of any cross contamination happening, any risk of particles getting inside the clean room, right? So that is one solution. Again, people are providing fan filter units, which is basically for semiconductor applications, semiconductor manufacturing industries, and hospitals also. So that is the HEPA filter, which is connected with the fan, with the EC fan, to maintain laminar airflow, right? Because in semiconductor industries and other OLED electronics manufacturing, you need to maintain clean clean air. Along that, it should be laminar in nature. There should not be any turbulent mixing of air. So that is why this unit is there. It is called a fan filter unit, right? A lot of people are giving it. Uh, Moving forward, in hospitals and certain critical processes, you have BIBO units, which is bag in, bag out units, right? Now, these BIBO units are there basically like, let's say for a hospital environment, wherein you have designed the isolation room, right? Now, if you have put a HEPA filter, there would be a time when you would want to change your HEPA filter, right? So for that, you cannot simply change the HEPA filter by bringing it in contact with the airstream. You have to uh, basically uh, protect that the HEPA filter should not come in contact with the person who's changing the HEPA filter, right? So to prevent any cross contamination, you have BIBO units, which is basically, it's a thick casing, and in the casing you have gloves installed, you have a plastic bag, etc. So whenever you are changing your HEPA filters, there absolutely no risk that your HEPA filter would come in contact with the person who's changing it or with the airstream, and there would be no possibility of any leakage happening, so that your viruses or your pathogens or other harmful materials, they don't get leaked outside the air, right? So that is why this BIBO unit, bag in, bag out type, is being used in a lot of hospital applications nowadays. Yeah. uh, of course, with nowadays you have biosafety labs which are being in design, right? So you have HEPA filters, you have BIBO units, etc., which are there in place for biosafety labs, BSL labs we call it, right? So again, that is that kind of application. Subsequently, like these standalone units, as I said, they are very compact in nature, and uh, in fact, they come from a CFM of minimum of 500 CFM up till 2000 CFM also. So that can be used. And again, noise level is bare minimum, only around 50 dB, not more. Yeah. Also, in air filtration, we have kitchen ecological units. So, like when you are designing your hotel kitchens, etc., right? So, dry scrubbers is one thing, right? So, why are they required? It is because all your oil mist and other grease and other fat which is there, which is involved in the cooking, you don't want you don't want that to accumulate inside the duct, right? Because that could be a potential fire hazard. So for addressing that, for addressing those kind of issues, we have air filters. So what you see in this unit, you have an ESP filter, right? Ionization filter. Again, we are recommending it because it is being used in the exhaust. So you have ionization filters, you have your fine filters to address your contaminants, and then you have gas-based filters, chemical filters to address your gases and other kitchen odors which need to be captured, followed by a SISW fan. So this is the kind of engineering which can be done for a hotel kitchen application, right? Yeah. Uh, Also, conventionally, people for HEPA and ULPA filters, they used to use glass fiber media. Now, problem is that this glass fiber media, it is not at all durable. It is very prone to damage. It is when it comes in contact with water, it gets damaged. So all that issues are there with glass fiber. But again, because of its efficacy in capturing small sized particles, people are using HEPA filters with glass fiber media. Because again, I would like to highlight that since they operate on a principle called diffusion, right? Wherein you have van der Waals forces, you have Brownian motion, which is how they capture the particles. So that is why a fibrous media, a glass fiber media, is known to have a higher efficiency. So since the early 1940s, glass fiber was being used for capturing your glass fibers were being used in HEPA filters. But subsequently, people have changed to PTFE, which is polytetrafluoroethylene. So that is a new media which is there. We have it. Again, Daikin American Air Filters has that media. And the advantage is that it has a very low pressure drop. Like it has literally half the pressure drop of a conventional HEPA filter. And it has 84 times the pleated strength of a conventional glass fiber HEPA, right? So it has much, it is very long lasting, it is highly durable, and the life of the HEPA filter is increased manifold, right? So it has all the advantages. You have a very minimum pressure drop and you have a high life associated. Moreover, since with HEPA filters, you require fumigation, right? And there is a requirement as per GMP practices that you should validate your filters every 6 months. So there is a lot of fumigation happening. Now with conventional media, conventional glass fiber media, every fumigation releases, there is a possibility of the HEPA getting damaged, right? Which is not the case with PTFE or membrane-based media again. So that is the advantage of PTFE, right? Um, so this just lists the advantages associated with the PTFE. Again, it is for H13 and H14 grades, which are HEPA filters, and a very high chemical resistance, very high durability. Off gassing is basically certain filters are known to produce certain gases. When like boron, etc., dopant gases, which can be harmful. So no, there is very minimal off gassing with the PTFE, and of course pressure drop is also very low with this, right? Uh, Now also, as I was saying, that as per EN 1822 standards, this is a photo of our Bangalore facility. So this is a auto scanner, right? So again, as we were discussing, this auto scanner is a completely computerized instrument which is there to check the filter for leakages, for any kind of. Uh, it is a very accurate tool because it is completely computerized to check the efficiency of the filter, to measure the downstream concentration of particles. So that is why it is used. You can see these are the reports which are generated in an auto scanner, right? And this shows that why is it required, because when you are moving the probe manually to check a HEPA filter, it is literally impossible that you would capture the HEPA filter thoroughly, right? There could be irregularities involved. So that is why this auto scan is made mandatory. It is a requirement as per EN 1822 standards, which is why people are investing on this, right? So this video I've already shown. I'll just skip this one. Yeah. um, Again, so if I talk of filtration, history of filtration, so you have A, which is your protection of HVAC equipment. Now when I talk of AHU coils, so if there is a large level of contamination in the air, your heat transfer efficiency would be reduced drastically, right? It is known that approximately 30 to 35% drop in heat transfer efficiency occurs if your air is full of pollutants, if you don't have a correct filtration system involved, right? Secondly is the protection of downstream assets. Now you have certain equipment, like we were taking the case of data centers, right? Where you want to protect from corrosion. So that is why you require filtration. Thirdly, which is the most important, is your protection of people, because of IAQ related issues, because of SBS, which is sick building syndrome. IAQ is very, very important. In the US, it's almost $10 billion industry focusing on indoor air quality. So that is why air filtration is involved in this aspect also, right? Uh, a lot of people have come out with a new technology which is called IoT based sensors also for filtration, right? So you must have seen, like if we go to all DLF buildings in Gurgaon, they are showing the what is the air quality being measured, right? So a similar tool is available elsewhere also. Just to put up a case, basically all your facility managers, like different facility management companies, how they are changing, how they are measuring the filters. So first is a time-based frame, like you are changing the filters every 2 weeks or every month, right? That is one way of looking at it. So problem with this method is that probably you are changing the filters which are still clean, which are not dirty, right? Probably you are wasting good filters. And uh, secondly, second is that you measure the pressure drop. You are checking the pressure drop, and basis when you see a filter getting choked, you are replacing it. Now, both these methods are highly time consuming, highly labor intensive, right? So to cater to that, there is different. There are different solutions. Like a conventional BMS system, a similar solution is there, which is called Sensor 360. Now, what it does is basically that it can sorry yeah it gives you an idea of the outside air quality through various sensors. You have an ambient air sensor, you have an
आपकी
indoor air
रिकॉर्डिंग
sensor.
है हो गई
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
रिकॉर्डिंग है हो गई
uh,
Tushar, we
so
can hear you.
basically, yeah, should I continue? Yeah, there's some disturbance,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that is why. So
I'll just
basically,
mute it.
yeah, so basically you have ambient sensors to check the outside air pollution and inside air pollution, and you have various DP sensors installed across the filters to check the actual pressure drop. So what it does is basically it will give you a real-time assessment of how much is the indoor air quality being maintained, how much is the pressure drop which is there across the filters, and how much is the energy being consumed by your present setup of filters. All that data can be done, right? That tool is available nowadays with lot of manufacturers, right? And again, it is completely wireless. It all works on a cloud. And lastly, it will give you how much is the life remaining of your filters also. So all that data can be done using this kind of tool, which is called Sensor 360, right? So that is about air filtration. Also, I would like to say that there is a misnomer, there is a misunderstanding that filters are washable. Actually, if you see only your MERV 8 filters, till like what all filters which are non-woven synthetic media, that you can say that that can be washed. We as a company, we as an organization, we don't recommend it, because with every subsequent wash you are damaging the fibrous structure of a filter, right? So what people don't realize is that with wash you might notice a drop in pressure drop. You might see that, okay, my the pressure drop which was there in a dirty filter, that has reduced, but that could be because the filter is not performing as per the rated efficiency. Air is bypassing. So that is why we don't recommend that filters should be washed at all. Filters should be replaced ideally. And if you're talking of HEPA filters, ULPA filters, definitely there is no chance of them washing. You need to incinerate the HEPA filter and replace it with a new one, right? So that is about washing of a HEPA filter. Yeah. Uh, Lastly, I would like to touch base on this one. Sorry, just a second. So like basically why, so this is why we need air filters, as we already covered it. And these are the various size of contamination which is there. If you see, like we already discussed how the 100 microns is the size of the human air. So when you talk of PM10, PM2.5, you can see how small the particulate matter is, right? So this is again the various ranges of different particulate matter, suspended atmospheric dust, right? So we already discussed that all these can lead to problems in your respiratory trachea or in your in your lungs, which is where this PM particulate matter is deposited, and you have to take care of it accordingly, right? And so large respirable particulate matter is from PM10 to PM2.5, right? And this can be addressed by your normal, like your nose is a first stage of filter. So it can capture from probably 100 to 10 microns. That can be mitigated through your nose, right? But all fine respirable matter, which is smaller than 2.5 microns, can ultimately evade the body's defense mechanism and penetrate through your lungs, right? Which is why there is so much focus, which is why globally everybody is focusing on PM10, PM2.5, and PM1 level of pollutions, right? WHO, US EPA, ISO, they are all talking about IAQ, indoor air quality, right? So again, this slide I have shown a similar slide to you before also, which talks of the level of how the PM level is deposited inside the human body, right? And this is about dirty coils, etc. I would just like to talk about how does a air filter actually operate, right? So we all have a mental image that a filter is nothing more than a sieve, right? It's a basically it's a what we term in Hindi as channi, wherein your smaller sized microorganisms, particulate matter would pass through, and the larger ones would be stuck. But basically, that is not all that there is. There is definitely a lot of science involved. So if you see this slide, you can see the various technologies through how a filter operates. You have straining, you have impingement, interception, diffusion, electrostatic. So all these are there in the working of an air filter, right? So when I talk of straining, so what it means is basically that your larger size particles would effectively be stopped, right? Because they would be captured by the media, by the fibrous materials, etc. So it is a simply a straining method, wherein because of the size of the particulate matter, the filtration is occurring, right? That is one way of it. Subsequently, just a second, yeah. Subsequently, impingement. So impingement is basically that your PM10 microns or certain higher level of particulate which have certain inertia, right? So because of that inertia, they would not be able to change their movement inside the airstream, right? So because of that inertia, they keep on following the path, and they cannot change as per the different media structure inside the filter. So that is how they are captured. That is impingement, right? Um, if you see interception is again something similar, which is according to van der Waals forces, which is how a filter is able to capture, right? Various level of dust. And this, you can see this is a microscopic structure of how it is capturing the different particulate matter. Now, diffusion is what is there in a HEPA filter. This is how it operates. Now, diffusion is primarily by van der Waals forces, and that is how it is effective in capturing your contaminants. So uh, that is why all these filters are rated as per MPPS, which is the most penetrating particle size. So this is diffusion which comes into play, right? So this is the various sciences which are involved in your air filtration, basically, right? Lastly, lastly, this is the electrostatic filtration which is there, which works on ionization, right? So you are creating a charge, you are creating a positive and negative charge with which you are able to filter out your particles. Again, the challenge with this is that the efficacy is found to deteriorate over time. You know, the level of charging possible will not be the same throughout, right? And secondly, with ionization, with electrostatic forces, you have certain byproducts, you have certain ions which are generated inside the airstream, which are known to be harmful. That could be ozone, that could be hydroxyls, and other gases, etc. Right? So probably electrostatic filters should be avoided as per our company's observations, and that is one way. You know, so that is the last way of. So that those are the different stages. That is how we are able to capture different filters. Now, also, when you talk of air filters, you have UL listings available. UL is again for fire and smoke. So filters are rated as per what is the level of smoke that they're generating, what is the fire performance in case of flame. So filters are classified as per UL 900. That is the standard for fire and smoke performance. And we already talked about ASHRAE. So ASHRAE has 52.2. 52.2 is the latest standard on ASHRAE filtration, which is again from MERV 1 to MERV 16, right? That is that. And this is basically your reasons for keeping an eye on PM1. Again, only because PM1, because of literally no mass, it can stay inside the air for a very long period of time. So that is why it needs special attention. Similar is the case of COVID virus also, because that too is much smaller in size, only 0.01 microns. So that is why that can too remain inside the air for an indefinite period of time. Now, since we talk of since we were talking of COVID, just one last point. Uh, Basically, this virus is propagating as an aerosol. We have to realize that, right? So when we talk of a aerosol, what I mean is that basically when a person is coughing, when a person is sneezing, right? So in a droplet, you have large quantities of this virus, right? So thereby the size would increase, and that is how the HEPA filter is known to have a high efficacy in arresting your virus and your other bacteria, pathogens, etc. So with that, I think that is the end of my presentation. I would love to take questions, if any. Yeah.
Yeah, Tushar, it was a wonderful session. I believe you covered a lot of things, and there were quite a new things that you have covered. And uh, before moving further, I would like to take few questions that people have wrote it down in the chat box, and I would like you to answer them quickly. So
Yeah.
this is the first one is related to by Mr. Saran, and he's asking some related to AF. He's asking that is there any testing facility of AF available in Greater Noida?
We have a testing rig in our Bangalore factory. Since we were discussing on auto scanner, so again, Bhavya, because this is a general presentation, I don't want to be much product specific. Yes, we have a testing rig. In fact, we are the only ones to have it in India. We have a testing rig for, sorry, we call it auto scanner, which is a computerized setup to measure the filtration efficiency. So that is there in our Bangalore factory. So in Bangalore factory, we test all our filters thoroughly. We test our media, and from there it is sent to our Noida plant. So yes, we have a setup in Bangalore. Yeah.
There's another question by Mr. Saran that can you give few lines or speak few lines about sand trap lower filters? So are you dealing in that, and
Yes.
the function
Sand
of that?
Yes, sand trap louvers are basically for Middle East applications. Like it's a inertia filter, right? So what I mean is that in Middle East or let's say Rajasthan, where you have high concentration of sand, right? So you don't want that sand to penetrate inside your airstream. So that is why this inertia filters or this sand trap louver is for that kind of application. So primarily it is there because of the high inertia of sand particles. This filter is able to capture the sand, and that is how it works on inertia basically. So inside the filter there is a fine mechanism and complex passages with which, because of the inertia, this sand is captured, and that is how it works. So it also has a bleed air fan. You have a bleed air fan which automatically would cycle and throw out the sand captured. So application of a sand trap lower or an inertia filter would be mostly for desert related areas or where you have high concentration of sand. I would not recommend it like for a Noida or for a Gurgaon application where probably you don't need, because it's an investment. It is costly. Uh, Sand trap louvers. Yeah.
So next questions are related to COVID, and Mr. Vinod and Mr. Dinesh has a question that by including MERV 9 or 13 into the HUs, it will increase the pressure drop. So is there any some other way where
Yes.
we are
Yes.
not including filters and just doing something or increasing fresh air
Yes.
so that we can handle the
See,
COVID situation?
yes. See, if you again, if I talk of ISHRAE and ASHRAE guidelines on COVID, right? So
Mm.
what they are recommending is that minimum of MERV 13. Secondly, they are also recommending increasing the fresh air intake. Also, ideally, you should work on improving your filtration system to the highest level of filtration. Now, I understand that the challenge comes that lot of commercial buildings are designed for 40 static or 50 static. So probably they cannot handle a HEPA filter. With that, we have an option of freestanding units, like probably like the tower ACs which we used to see. So they are essentially bigger room air purifiers, right? So that option is available with a lot of people now, in which you have HEPA filters installed inside that tower AC, and that can work on a recirculation mode. So with that, you can address your IAQ concerns, right? So you are filtering out the air on a recirculation mode through HEPA filter. You can also install a UV lamp inside it so that what all virus pathogens are captured, you can kill it with the UVC lamp. And so that is how it is. Because again, MERV 13 or MERV 9 level of filter would not be effective against COVID or viruses, because a MERV 9, see, a MERV 8 filter is just the G4 filter, which is what we are using. And a MERV 13 filter would be an F7 filter. Again, so that is probably more effective for PM10 and PM2.5. But if you talk of viruses, which are much more smaller in nature, then these filters would not be effective at all. So you need to go for HEPA and ULPA filters only. Other than that, probably there is uh, the efficacy would not be there with normal standard filters. Yeah.
So next question we have Mr. Praful Thakur. This is interesting, and I think you have already covered it, but still I would like to take one more time. Do AF recommend to wash F7 or MERV 13 filters? If yes, then
Again,
will be
yeah.
it be as efficient as for PM1 particles?
No,
So
no. See,
so two
again,
lines on that.
yeah, I would like to. I would only say that, see, with every subsequent wash, you are damaging your filter. You are deteriorating its efficiency, right? So, globally, this is not at all followed. Globally, there is no practice, none whatsoever, of washing a filter. People replace it, which is the best thing to do. I understand that because of cost constraints, people are more inclined towards washing a filter, but actually you are not getting any advantage. Literally, you are, with every wash you are damaging your filter, because your fibrous structure with which the filter is with which the filter is able to capture, that is getting damaged. So what you see, you only see that, okay, if my filter is choked, if it is giving me probably a pre-filter is giving me 12 pressure drop, that means I need to wash it. And if you wash it, and if that pressure drop reduces to 8 or 6 you are happy that, okay, that filter is clean. But what you are not realizing is that the efficiency is deteriorating. If you check the efficiency, it would not be as efficient as before. Probably there is bypass of air which is not even getting filtered. So don't wash. Having said that, if yes, people are inclined that we want to wash, then only non-woven synthetic media, only that level of media can be washed, which is like G4 and probably some filters of F7, F8 grade. But higher than that, if I talk of F9, if I talk of H13, if I talk of H14, definitely wherein you have fibrous media, you will destroy the filter if you wash it. And ideally speaking, HEPA filter should simply be incinerated. You should not wash it at all. So that is for washing. Yeah.
So Tushar, you're not finding in bracket washable written in Indian tenders and BOQ?
No, no, I am finding it. See again, Bhavya, that is our company observation. What we are finding is that we also cannot change it, and we also in our drawings, like for G4 filters, we are writing that washable or clean by compressed air, 3 to 5 bar of pressure. So that we are specifying for G4 filters, but nothing for fine filters, like for semi HEPA and HEPA filters, definitely no washing, because you're not only damaging the filter, if you are washing it outside, you are probably leaking the virus pathogens inside the airstream, which you don't want, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So there's another interesting question by Mr. Tapan Basu, and he's asking that what is the impact of UV lamp on HEPA filters? So can you
Good
comment on that?
question. Good question. Again, yes, with prolonged UV exposure, it is not tested, but it is known that probably the HEPA media could get brittle with prolonged exposure. But with prolonged exposure, that is a very, it's a generic term, right? It can be harmful for anybody. So even if you see in the ISHRE guidelines, they have also recommended that if you are using
Tushar, your voice is breaking, I think. Can you hear me, Tushar? There is some issue with Tushar. He's trying to reconnect. So he's trying to reconnect. So give us a few minutes more. There are a lot many questions that have been asked, so we'll not be able to cover all the questions, but we'll be taking few more, and you can write to us on ishray.gurugram@gmail.com so that we can give you uh, uh, the specified answer by the concerned person and forward to you back. Let's see if Tushar can join us back, and we're in touch with him so that he can join us back. We have got page on Facebook as well as LinkedIn, so I will request you all who are already joined the session to like the page on on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we always upload these videos on our YouTube channel. So in case you have missed it, so you can go through the sessions once again on YouTube. I think Tushar has tried to join us back. Tushar, can you hear me? Tushar, can you hear us?
Hello, am I?
Yeah, Tushar, you are audible.
Yeah, sorry, network related issues. Yeah.
No issues.
So we had some questions. Yeah.
You were taking that question, that impact of UV on HEPA. I think you have covered it. We can take the
Yes. Yes.
next question now. And sorry for some interruption. It happens when you do things
Yeah.
digitally.
Yeah.
So, so there's another interesting question by Deepak Malu that he is telling the people are recommending to have antimicrobial coating on our split AC air conditioning and air filters to eliminate bacteria and viruses.
Yes,
So
that can be
what
done.
is your say on that? Is it having a positive impact on the system or not?
Yes, see, Bhavya, basically, the reason behind it that if you're capturing, right, because again, all your filtration systems, what they would do, they would essentially capture your virus and your other bacteria, right? But when you want to kill it, so that is why you're installing a UV lamp, right? So again, point here being that this antifungal, antibacterial coating would prevent the propagation, would prevent the fungal growth from spreading. So yes, it could be done, and we have it in our manufacturing range. Like we give filters with antibacterial, antifungal coating. So that option is there. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So next question is by Mr. Tapan Basu once again. Is there an Indian standard of filters?
Indian standard. ISHRI has come out with a standard. I think I saw it last year. They had a guidebook on filtration standards. But other than that, globally we are following ASHRAE 52.2, EN 779, EN 1822, ISO 14644, and last being ISO 16890, which is for PM level pollution. Those are the standards which are being followed globally. Yeah.
The other one is by Mr. Rajesh. He's asking what is super HEPA?
Super HEPA is basically for a higher flow. Like I would take the case of a 610, 292 filter for a HO application, which is probably good for 1000 CFM. So for a super HEPA, it would be double the airflow. So it would be 2000 CFM. So that is why it is classified as super HEPA. Yeah.
So it's directly related to the width of the filters, and
It is
it is
more
different
that
from the mini plate.
The only reason for a super HEPA, for a super flow filter, is that the filter can handle much more airflow uh, without compromising on the efficiency, without compromising on the pressure drop. So that is why we have a super HEPA filter. Yeah.
And what are the recommended velocities for the filters? It is asked by someone. I could not see the name.
Yes,
So
good question. Good question. So basically, if you see for a HO application, we all know that 2.5 meter per second, which is 500 FPM for a HO application, or slightly lower. That is for HO level of filters. But when you go down to the terminal level, I'm saying for a pharma application, then that velocity would go down. That would be 1.27 meters per second, or roughly 120, 125 FPM or 250 FPM. That is for a terminal flow, terminal level application, right? So similarly, when you design chemical filters, then those velocities are much more lower in nature. That would be around 300 FPM or 350 FPM. So that is how it is basically designed.
so when you do the testing of the filters, at what velocities you do the testing? If I'm talking
Again,
about the terminal HEPA filters, then what velocity you are considering? Is it
uh,
250 FPM? But the brochures are having something different. So can you comment
uh,
on that?
yes, so basically, if you see, again, it is dependent on like whether we are coating mini pleat filter or whether we are coating deep pleat filter. It's different for different application. Like probably what velocity is there for a mini pleat filter, which is around 149 mm or 96 mm depth, etc. That would not be the same for a deep pleat filter. So it is varying with different filtration depths and application. I can't really generalize it, actually. Yeah. So testing, I mean, again, depend. See, normally what happens is that if you increase the filter depth, if you are giving more more media area, your pressure drop would go lower. So that is the advantage, I suppose. You know. And again, if you increase the velocity, problem is that if you are operating at a higher than rated velocity, you would compromise on your filtration efficiency and you would compromise on the pressure drop also, which would be higher than the rated one. Yeah.
There's another question which is much similar to what Mr. Tapan asked by Vignesh, that impact of UV on UVC on the efficiency of the filter. So I think you've
Uh,
already covered that.
yes,
But
yes. See, it's like very minuscule. As such, there is no lingering damage or anything. It's only that with prolonged exposure, and probably by that time the HEPA would have exhausted its life in a normal way. Like if I say initial IPD is 25 mm, you are looking to change a HEPA when it reaches around 50, 55, 55 mm water drop, pressure drop, right? So uh, uh, this UVC does not have an impact, nothing much. See, it would, with prolonged exposure, the HEPA media could get brittle. But that's when I'm talking like very, very, aggressively. So conservatively speaking, with 15 minutes of operation in a day, nothing would happen. No significant impact on any HEPA filter or on any media as such. See, like uh, as such, if we also have prolonged exposure to UV, we could also get impacted, right? But no, people are using UVC. It's being recommended everywhere. A lot of people are shifting to UV nowadays because of their efficacy against viruses and bacteria. So with a certain minimum level of exposure, it is completely safe. There is no um, there are no issues of any deterioration of efficiency or any problems of HEPA. Yeah.
so we'll be taking the last question. There are plenty of question. You can write us to isha.gurugram@gmail.com. It's a very interesting topic. So, and the presentation is too good. So it's quite interactive, but you can still write to us because we have a time limit and the Zoom call may end. So we'll taking the last question. What is the optimum velocities or FPM for chemical filter? Is it vary from the normal particulate filters? How does
Yes,
it vary
yes.
from a chemical
300,
filter?
300, 350 FPM is what I've seen in my experience. For
Okay.
I'm talking of deep bed scrubber units for refinery applications. So there you see 350 FPM as the norm. 350 FPM. Yeah.
Okay. So do have super HEPA can be used in nuclear applications?
Yeah. See, because in nuclear applications, you are looking to contain your radiation, right? So, in fact, not only HEPA, HEGA filters, which is high efficiency gas adsorption, HEGA, they are mostly used to capture your any chance of any radiation leaks. So, in fact, we have a company. We as a company we have supplied to this when this tsunami happened in Japan, that Fukushima nuclear disaster. Double F filters were supplied, HEGA filters. So yeah, they are suitable for nuclear applications also. Yes.
Okay, so I think we'll cover more questions through emails. I will repeat one more time. You can write to us on ishray.gurugram@gmail.com. And it was a fantastic presentation by Tushar. And Tushar, thank you very much on behalf of Ishray Gurugram chapter and Bhavya Jain that you have come up with some very good presentation and taken out time from a busy schedule. And it's been Sunday and we are talking something on the lunch time. So thank you very much, and thank you all of you so for joining
Eh,
us for this
uh,
interesting presentation. We're looking AF and looking Tushar you to come up with more presentations like that so we can have a more interactive
Definitely,
sessions
definitely.
in the future.
Bhavya,
And
thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for giving me this
Yeah,
opportunity, and I enjoyed it. I'm really indebted to you and Ishray Gurugram chapter for giving me this opportunity. And whenever you want me, I'm definitely available for any sessions in
yeah.
future. Please do let me
Tushar,
know.
I would like
Thank you.
to you to speak 1 2 lines on encouraging people to join Ishray. If you know and I know the benefits of joining Ishray and how big the platform is and how much opportunity it can provide to an individual.
Yes,
So
yes.
just 1 or 2 line on that to encourage people joining Ishray, then especially Ishray Gurugram chapter. So it would be
See,
great if you can say something.
see, I'll talk on my personal note. I joined this industry in 2006 as a GAT, and my first smart decision was that I did not delay joining Ishray. I think I have been a member for a very long time now. I think I joined in 2006 itself, and it's a fantastic opportunity. Like if you are interested in pursuing your career in air conditioning industry, you have to be. There is no chance. You have to be a Ishray member because the kind of programs that Ishray has, I'm talking of all chapters, Ishray as a whole, Ishray Gurugram, be it the city in which you are living, it's the thing to do. I mean, if you are serious in this industry, you have to be on Ishray. In fact, why only limit yourself to Ishray? You should be a Ashray member also. And in my case, I have taken up Ashray membership. I am an Ishray member. I am in fact associated with FSCI also. So you should be up to mark. You should know everything and anything that is happening in your industry. For with that, definitely in Ishray membership is the first thing you should look out for. It would only be beneficial. I mean, definitely it's a no-brainer. Don't think twice. It's very easy. You can do an online registration.
Yeah. You can always write to us for more details and I will help you how
Yes,
to be a part of it. And once again, Tushar, it's been a great last 2 hours and it was very interesting. Thank you once again on the behalf of Isha Gurugram chapter, and we're looking forward for more support from your side. And thank you very much. And
definitely.
thank you all the audience joining.
Thank
Uh,
you everybody for attending this. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. So
Okay.
it's Bhavya Jain signing off. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.